Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Mr. Johnny LeHane.
Hey, how we doing?
Good, thanks. How's it going, Johnny?
It's going pretty good.
So is that a French name, LeHane, or Irish? Or
It is Irish. The H was capitalized by my grandfather for some reason, and we don't know why. Maybe to look French, but we're told that it wasn't quite when Irish need not apply, so I think it was just to stick out on the side of a truck.
When was it Irish need not apply?
Well, that was more late 1800s.
I doodled all through history class.
Yeah.
But once upon a time, it was like no more Irish. We
the Irish, we didn't want them from the start. And then during the potato famine and all that, there were too many coming over. So stay there. Yeah.
Well, I'm not thinking I should have paid attention, but it's nice to hear some of what I missed in history class.
LeHane, it comes from lions.
From lions?
Lions, like Lyons. Same lineage.
Oh, okay. Lions in France?
Lions also in County Cork in Ireland.
Oh, okay.
There's a Castle Leon and all of that.
I see. So have you been to Ireland? Have you been to sort of the ancestral home?
I have. I went for once with my parents. After they retired, they went over often. My dad really wanted to dig up a lot of history and stuff. So my sister and I went and visited for like 4 days while they were there for like 5 weeks once. Then for our honeymoon, we did a week in Ireland and a week in Germany. My wife's 100% German, my wife, Melissa. My brother got married near Galway, so I went over then.
Wow.
And then I won a ticket to, not a ticket, excuse me, I won a week in Ireland. Didn't include transportation, but at that point, my wife was sick of going to Ireland, so I brought my then 13-year-old daughter, and we went between Christmas and New Year's, and that was a great trip, too.
Wow. And did anybody give you a hard time about your name? Like, what are you doing spelling it like this?
Yeah, they're Irish. They don't really care.
They're
like,
care.
They're friendly.
Huh. What a blast. And where's she from in Germany, the missus?
Well, her family is from Germany, so she's second generation, but 100% German. Her family, and there's still some family in Munich area.
Very interesting.
All four of her grandparents came over during and after World War II.
And your people, the LeHanes, came over when?
We are mutts. With some 13 generations ago, like some Mayflower. We're Irish name, but I'm mostly a mutt.
And this mutt sitting here, thank you for coming. You were raised in this area somewhere.
I was in LaGrange, so Arlington School District, Poughkeepsie mailing address.
Huh. Interesting. And so you left at some point. You went away to college in D.C., I think?
That's right. I went to Catholic University in D.C., studied electrical engineering, copycat kid. My dad was an IBMer for 37 years. I figured I would probably do something like that.
I see.
Engineering was good. D.C. was a city. The second I landed there, I was like, I can understand this city. Like, it was small enough to put your arms around.
But how did you get there? I mean, was it a particularly good engineering school or just far enough away from home? Or?
I wasn't a student. It was a school that accepted me, that my parents liked because it had Catholic in the name. And again, when I landed in D.C., I was like, I definitely would love to be in this city.
Right.
So just connected. Probably somebody from my church said, hey, have you looked at Catholic, right, to my parents or something. So I added it. It was like Notre Dame, who didn't want me, Binghamton, who didn't want me, a Catholic University, and I think I probably got into like Albany and Geneseo or something like that too.
And you stayed there for 4 years.
Stayed there for 4 years.
You liked D.C.
Got the degree, stayed there. Well, actually, I left for a short stint because, unbeknownst to me at the time, there was a recession in 94. So I couldn't get a job, didn't know how to get a job. Their career training maybe wasn't great at that time at Catholic U. Lived in Rochester for a short stint, did some part-time work for Xerox, which ended up being sort of project management-y stuff. But ended up moving back to D.C. with a buddy of mine who I had introduced him to a girl in D.C. He wanted to be near her. So he said, hey, let's move back to D.C. So we did that, and I started out my career in software.
And I'm just guessing, so you're like 23 or 24 or something.
Then?
Yeah. Moving from Rochester back to D.C.
Really quickly. I was like 21, 22 even. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had a car. You probably just had enough stuff to fill the
a car that was like breaking
seat.
Down or getting broken into because it was Northeast D.C., so that's what happened.
And so you did engineering in college, and then you just said went back to D.C. and you got into software.
Yeah. In the early 90s, there wasn't a lot of great computer science schools outside of like the MITs and the real critical centers. engineering and computer science were electrical engineering specifically, sort of the same thing. And I really tended towards the computer science, but I felt like I needed that degree in engineering. So stuck it out, took chemistry twice so I could get the engineering degree, and then went into software.
And what were you doing when you went into software?
So I ended up working for a small software company that was called Capitol Hill Software, 13-person business. And I was a low man on the totem pole. So I answered customer service calls. I converted data. They managed political action committee, lobbying, and donations and stuff. So somewhat complex software for the time. So I was training people, doing database conversions. I ended up writing their first software manual for their Windows product because this is old times.
Right. And were you writing software as well, creating the stuff?
I wasn't writing code at that time. I left for there and went to America Online, where they asked me to write code in a proprietary language to do quality assurance, so to test how the AOL software worked. So then I started writing code, and I wrote code for like 2 or 3 years.
When did you go to AOL?
January 98.
And did you buy a shit ton of stock?
I didn't have to buy a shit ton of stock. They gave me options, but they didn't give me a shit ton of options. It was really... So a buddy of mine who... I'm the youngest of 6. And so my sister, who's 9 years my elder, also lived in D.C. and Northern Virginia around that time. One of her friends had gotten into AOL and was like, Johnny, you need to come here. You need to come here. They're giving away options. We're all going to be filthy rich.
Right.
So he got me the interview. I got the interview, and I never heard back. He's like, don't worry, you're in. Your name's on the door. You're totally set. Finally, they hired me at 1/10 the options that they had been giving away the weeks before. And the stock had split twice in the meantime, which ended up, like, with the math, people who got hired 2 months before me, 4 years later, retired with $10 million. And I did well. I'm not complaining. I paid off my student loans. I got a good down payment on my house. Like, I'm super stoked, right?
And hopefully you got a better car, too.
And I ended up with a little better car. I bought my first Jeep, and here I am now on my 30 years later on my second Jeep, but still going.
Really?
Yeah.
That's it? Seriously? You've had two cars?
2 cars that I bought
in 30
new.
years?
Yeah. 15 years, well, 25 years, 15 years and 10 years, yeah.
Well, hats off to you. And did you just
I'm not a car guy.
Did you just say you were youngest of 6?
Yes, youngest of 6.
So
again, Irish Catholic. So
there you go. Wow. So that had to be something. Growing up with all these brothers and sisters.
Yeah, I'm the. There's 3 older sisters, and then there's 3 boys. 9 years, so pretty tight group. It was the only thing I knew, but it was always lively, and I always liked to have people around. And my friends and family will say that's still the same thing, right? Johnny wants to be in the middle of the action,
right?
Where a lot's going on.
That's so great. And so, are they still around here? The siblings?
Most of them are in New York.
City or state?
State.
Okay.
So really fortunate. My sister, Meg Serbone, ended up meeting a guy in 2004 at work who owned a house in Rhinebeck that he actually had on the market, the story goes, when he met her and took it off the market. They got married a couple of years later. So my sister moved here and then moved my parents from my childhood home in LaGrange to a house nearby. So they moved on to Seymour. And when my wife and I had our second kid on the way and I had become an entrepreneur so I could live wherever I wanted to, this was where we wanted to be. So we looked at a few other towns up and down the Hudson River, but we quickly said, hey, let's be in Rhinebeck.
And what were the runners up?
Well, Red Hook, Kinderhook, but nobody really came close. Nobody comes close. It's Rhinebeck.
And so now in Rhinebeck, it's you, your parents, your sister.
Well, and now just my mom. My dad passed in 2009.
Sorry to hear
2008. Thank you. And my sister and her husband, and then me, my wife, and our 3. Well, now only 2 of them because our oldest is off at Dutchess.
Oh, wow. And off at Dutchess and living there?
They have 1 dorm, and she really wanted to live on campus. So she's in the dorm there and finding out what it's like to have 5 suite mates as opposed to having your own room with parents and siblings that don't really bother you
Which is an amazing, amazing learning experience. So she's the oldest of 3?
That's right.
And what are the other ages?
So 18, 16, who'll be 17 next month, and 15.
17. And so it's a girl and 2 boys?
2 girls,
2
and
girls,
a boy.
2 girls and a boy. And a senior?
Yeah.
17?
Yep. So my middle daughter Greta's a senior in at Rhinebeck.
And the youngest is in what?
He's a sophomore. Henry's a sophomore. Yeah.
What a blast. So why stop at 3? Why not 6?
We stopped at 2. And then we had a third.
I see. That's pretty much how it worked for me too.
My wife, 100% German. Everybody gets 2 kids.
That's it.
All her. That's it. No more, no less.
1.7.
Everybody gets 2 kids. Yeah.
And your siblings, did any of them go on and have 6 kids of their own?
No, me and my brother both had 3 in very similar combos. My oldest brother, Bob, has 3 kids that are 3 years older than my kids, basically. Right. And our other brother has 2 lovely daughters. And then there's, a couple more here and there. 2, right. 1 with the oldest, 2 with the other.
And how often do they all get together?
Thanksgiving.
And where's that going to be this year?
It's always either at my sister's house here in Rhinebeck. This year may be a little different because so many of them are college and post-college. We're at an inflection point in the big brood.
And so why your sister? Does she have the biggest dining room?
Great. Yeah, well, she turns her living room into a dining room.
Okay.
Yeah. Best place to sit, worst place to cook. So, like, sometimes the cooking will be going on at my house and my mom's house.
Right.
But then we all try to make it all happen. Sometimes people are like, oh, well, let's deep fry the turkey. Those things, right?
Make sure you shoot some video because the deep frying the turkey always results in some good Thanksgiving hijinks.
Never. Yeah.
So how many people do you have at something like that?
Well, I think there's 11 grandkids. My mom has 11 grandkids, right? And then most of the siblings and spouses show up. So it gets to be, 25-ish, something like that.
It's enough for a whole kickball game.
It is enough for a whole kickball game.
And do you ever play kickball with your family like that?
No. And we haven't at all hinted at why I would, but...
Do you know why I'm hinting at why you would? Because when I met you, I think I met you on the kickball field.
Oh, that is very possible. That's right.
WACA or something.
Yeah, WACA, the World Adult Kickball Association.
World Adult Kickball Association.
Yeah.
Now, did you invent the World Adult Kickball Association, or you're just the local supplier?
And 3 other guys created the idea of the World Adult Kickball Association one night at a bar in D.C. And
that's such a perfect
that's how it happened.
Origin story.
Yeah. And grew it to be in 70 cities across the U.S.
And so you and 3 other guys had the idea at the bar in D.C.
Yeah.
And then followed through. I mean, lots of ideas happen at lots of bars.
Absolutely, right. And stay on the napkin at the bar or whatever.
And honestly, World Adult Kickball Association seems like it'd be destined to stay in the napkin.
Absolutely. Well, really, that night, the thing that hit us was, the folks around us, as we were telling our stories, got really excited about the idea. They were like, if you create a kickball league, we are there. So that was like, okay, that's good. Now in my entrepreneurial
other
day,
drunks at this bar.
Yeah, the other drunks at this bar, which ended up being our primary customers. And I would say
drunks. That's how I stumbled onto it.
To this day is probably still true for the business.
Yeah.
So one of the guys really didn't like his day job. So he was like, this is $1 million idea. So he pushed us hard to get together and plan and try to see if we could make something of it. The other guys had also launched a co-ed fraternity at UVA or been deeply involved in it. Maybe they weren't the first founders.
Right.
So they were trying to recreate this co-ed fraternity concept after college is really what it was. And kickball was a great muse for it.
Good for them.
Yeah.
And so what was the name of the bar?
Kelly's Irish Times.
Oh, perfect.
Great. And Brennan Kelly was a friend of mine who went to school with me at Catholic U. And when he heard it, he said, I'll sponsor that. He said, I'll buy T-shirts, I think is what he said, or something like that. And we heard business model. We were like, hey, we got a sponsor. We got people interested. Let's see if we can make this happen. And then we had to go and see if we remembered how to play kickball. That only took a couple days.
Right. But luckily there was AOL on the internet, and you could probably look it up somewhere.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Right. Sort of look up the rules, sort of write them from memory. Like I went to Time War Day Camp in Unionvale, and I played kickball at Knoxon Elementary School in LaGrange. And I remembered things like 4 fouls is an out, that you can throw a ball at a guy, that it's okay if there's a ton of fielders. Like, let's do all that. Let's make kickball like when we were on the playground.
Yeah.
And then
a little bit of chaos.
Yeah. And the other thing we really liked about it, ironically, none of us were sports guys, but we knew that nobody was going to show up like they did at the softball games or the soccer games and be like, "Ooh, I played at Duke. I'm going to kick butt at this." Nobody lettered in kickball, right? Nobody played varsity kickball. So that was a leveling of the playing field. We thought at the time.
I love that. Nobody played varsity kickball.
Yeah.
That's a great line. So you guys went off and made it happen. You took it off of the napkin and onto the field of honor, the kickball field of honor. And how did that happen? Is it still happening?
Yeah. Yes, it is still happening. I'm no longer a part of it. It's been rebranded as Club Waka. And how we did it really is we just started a pickup league. Like to start, we were like, let's do a league and let's see if people will pay us $25 to join this league. Right. And while we were at AOL, it was still mostly pre-internet days. We created paper forms. We had people make a copy of their driver's license and their health insurance card, and we actually organized as a not-for-profit to start because we were told that'd be less liability. So for a couple years, we ran one league of 8 to 12 teams playing kickball, going back to Kelly's Irish Times, having a good time. And at the end of every spring or summer, we were like, this is a lot of work. Do we want to do this again? And that same guy who made sure we did it the first time really wanted to leave his job. So kept at it, and then a radio show found out about us and started talking about us every morning. Elliot in the Morning, who's now, I think, a nationally syndicated radio guy, got his start in D.C. One of our players called his morning radio show and challenged him to a kickball game. And then that was all he could talk. You can't buy that kind of press. Nobody would let you get away with that these days. I mean, we got hours and hours and hours of radio time. And we went from about 80 people playing one year to like 800 people playing like a year and a half later.
And so all of a sudden the guy who hated his job had a new job.
Had an exit. Well, the dot bomb 2001 when everything imploded.
Yeah.
Right? One of the other guys who had been the first guy at a software company that was growing really fast initially and then shrinking really fast got laid off. And he spent half his time looking for a job and half his time expanding the kickball organization.
And so what did it expand to? Is it like all nationwide?
Nationwide, yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God.
So DC's a totally transient city, right? People always coming and going.
Right.
So those folks who played kickball with us moved. And then they'd call us and say, I don't know anybody here. Can I start a Waka kickball league here so that I can meet some friends? And we'd be like, sure, this is how you do it. And those became our customer service reps, and they launched in Richmond and Miami and Boston.
And so people would sign up $20 or $40 or whatever and say Richmond.
Yeah.
And some of that money would funnel up to you for.
Yeah, well, we messed up a lot of times. We launched all of our later bigger competitors because we told them how to do it.
Right.
But we didn't give them enough value back. So they were like, well, I'm going to just do this myself. I don't need to be part of a national organization and what have you.
And so are there currently multiple national kickball organizations?
It falls under social sports leagues that all with the same thing of how do we get a little bit of activity and a little bit of drinking, or a lot of activity and a little bit of drinking, or a little bit of activity and a lot of drinking.
Right.
But there's a few hundred social sports organizations around the U.S. Most of them focus on a single city or a small region.
And so who's the biggest? It's not Club Waka?
I don't think Club Waka is the biggest right now. I have been pretty unplugged from the industry for like 3 years. But there's a couple others that have grown.
How did you get unplugged and why?
Great question.
Thank you.
In 2015, we had a great year, and it wasn't our first great year. We were culminating, but lots of up and down. But at the same time, for several years, we had expanded 35 states, 70-something cities. I felt like I was always dealing with the same challenges, and from the business perspective, and I wasn't growing anymore, basically. And at the same time, I had been here in the Hudson Valley for a decade, and I hadn't gotten connected enough into the Hudson Valley community. Rhinebeck, I got to know folks through my kids in school and all that, but I had learned a lot about business in my journey of working with my partners to set up Waka, and I wanted to share some of that. And I also wanted to work with technology and software again. So we had that really good year. Me and my partners weren't necessarily always seeing eye to eye. And I said, why don't you write me out of the org chart? And so 2016, I did not have a day job anymore. I was still getting compensated. That was great. So I was basically a board member. And at the same time, someone said, hey, we need to start an angel investment organization in the Hudson Valley, and approached me about the idea. And I loved the idea and didn't really know what it all meant at the time, but I knew I wanted to know more about direct investing in companies. Also because we at Waka had some companies, some private equity come to us and say, hey, we'd like to invest in you. Well, let's tell you how this would work. And we didn't know how it would work. So I wanted to learn about it.
So they did not invest in you?
Waka never took any investment that I know of. They never during my tenure.
And are the guys still there making a good living?
I think that they're doing great. I know they survived the pandemic. I know that was a really big challenge. I fully left the business about a year before the pandemic.
But kickball's nicely socially distanced, really.
Yeah, well, right. Okay. Yeah, they did get restarted, after not too long. I know it was hard, but I think they're probably in a pretty good spot right now.
Right. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So they didn't take any investor money, but you moved on because you had become sort of an investor in
Well, I knew I wanted to do something else. I knew I wanted to be connected to local businesses. I knew I wanted to help launch local businesses or support businesses that wanted to be here in the Hudson Valley.
How did you know that?
I don't know. The same reason I knew to do kickball, right?
But if you hadn't sort of seen that around, I mean, what was your first exposure to? I mean, I think your site says angel investors.
Yes. I think I had gotten into the concept of it, like from a news junkie sort of thing. I was a tech junkie. When I was at AOL and they gave me those stock options, I didn't really understand that. So I started reading business journals. I read Fortune cover to cover for 10 years.
Egads.
While I was at AOL and a little bit after. And that was sort of the best I could get at an MBA at the time.
Right.
But learned a lot about more industry and a little bit about early stage stuff and investing there. And then as we were growing, we were bootstrapped, meaning we never took any capital. So we had grown ourselves, but we went to a lot of business conferences quarterly, especially after I moved to New York.
The Waka people.
The Waka guys, and my Waka partners. They were down in Virginia. I was up in New York. When we would want to get together quarterly for like big planning and stuff. We would do that at business conferences so we could also learn and get energized by other folks who were running their own businesses.
That's smart.
And I think that's probably where I got interested in the idea of, hey, you can move a lot faster if you take a lot more risk and use other people's money. What does that look like? And I didn't want to do it myself. I didn't want to spend other people's money, but I wanted to help other folks make that happen.
I love that. And so if you want to start a company that does that, how do you do that?
Well, you
get
a mentor,
angel investor
like in almost everything, right?
Yeah.
So the guy whose idea this was, Tony DeMarco, was at Marist College at the time. And he was introduced to me, and he was introduced to a group called Eastern New York Angels. That was an angel investment group in the Capital District.
Okay.
And they told us everything they did. We went to some of their meetings. We saw how the mechanics worked. Basically, companies pitch, investors ask questions. If they like the possibilities, they say, hey, we'd like to have a lot more meetings and get to know a lot more about your plans and your business and where it is today. And maybe we'll write a check.
Sounds like Shark Tank.
Sounds like Shark Tank, right? In this case, the big difference was we needed to do three things with angel investing in the Hudson Valley, a location-based angel investing. We needed to educate angel investors because there weren't a lot of them here. We needed to create a sense of community around the investment and entrepreneurial startup ecosystem. And we needed to deploy capital. We needed to invest in companies to help them grow or to attract them here. With the Hudson Valley Startup Fund, that first fund was 40 accredited investors, which means you have some high net worth or income.
Wait. So you're sort of a clearinghouse. You're not the investing body.
I did not invest $1 million.
Right, but you had angel investors who you drew in and then pumped their investments out to worthy.
That's right. We created a network. We basically looked for all the folks who had who had liked the vision of investing in startups here in the Hudson Valley to help startups grow. And we gathered 40 folks together who were each interested in investing $25,000.
Right.
And that created a $1 million fund. And this is a member managed fund, which means they got to participate in deciding where our investments go, as opposed to in a venture company, Sequoia, one of these big firms, investors pour money into there and then the manager makes all the decisions.
And how does it work now?
So
for your company,
right? So we let our members vote on investment decisions.
Okay,
and we've deployed all the capital. So that company is in a different stage now. We're more in a portfolio management stage.
You deployed all the capital.
So we raised $1 million. We invested in 8 companies. We raised another $1 million. We invested in 7 more companies. With that, we had achieved 2 of those 3 goals I mentioned. We had educated 60 some odd angel investors. We had created a community of folks who were helping each other and startups out in investing and identifying companies and helping those companies grow. But we hadn't created a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem because it wasn't enough capital. A couple $1 million just scratches the surface of what you really need to get an ecosystem big enough and vibrant enough to go. So after Fund 2 was fully deployed or near full deployment,
that's the
second. Yep,
okay.
the second. We took a pause because the other side is nobody gets paid to do this work. We all get a success fee, basically. So when companies grow and either go public or get bought by somebody like SiriusXM or Google or Amazon or whatever, then our investors get paid back and get their upside, and then we as managers, that's when we get our upside.
Your success fee.
Our success fee.
So so you invest in 15 companies.
Yeah.
How many success fees did you get out of that?
We have
15?
one so far.
One success
We have
fee.
one success. We have two that have shuttered. And we have others in various stages, but some of them really exciting phases, like have gone on to raise. We might have invested 50 or 100,000, and they've gone on to raise $20 million and more.
What are some of the exciting ideas that you're sort of incubating?
Great question. Great question. Before the interview, we were talking about podcasting, obviously, and that company that I mentioned that was a success is Simplecast. So they are a podcasting platform, and that entrepreneur splits his time between upstate and the city. I met him through a local network of entrepreneurs, and super impressive, third-time entrepreneur. He built that company up from just him to 20 people and was bought by SiriusXM. So that was great.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
So is that the one that
That's
you
the
got
one.
your success fee?
Yeah. And then a lot of other exciting companies, from sort of the standard software startups to some that may not be the fast growing business that a startup you'd think of, but really check the boxes for us on community. So one of them is Hudson Harvest. You may be familiar with them. They deliver to restaurants and grocery stores, and all of their produce is local farms.
Right.
So, and they also do some light processing. So they have a few shelf products, salsas, sauces, etc. So we invested in them and helped them grow along. They were actually a merger of 4 other companies that had been birthed here in the Hudson Valley. And it's a thorny problem to do the logistics for the farm industry and for farm to table, basically.
Right. And some of these companies probably they're getting there. They're getting so close. They need additional infusions of cash.
That is true.
Do you do that?
We have not. We've done some follow-on investment to date. Mm-hmm. What we really do is try to have the relationships and the coaching to help them get there and to help them identify, what the right move is on that. But 3 of our companies have gone on to raise significantly more capital.
And you invest in some agricultural stuff. Anybody who grows hops?
We don't yet have anybody that grows hops, but we have looked at a lot of beer companies.
Beer.
And some of we haven't invested in a beer company, but some of our individual investors have invested into Paradox and a few other local beers.
Right. It seems like a good time to invest in beer.
Yeah, it might be late, but
it might be late, but it's not too late to have a beer.
That is correct.
And as is the tradition here, and correct me if I'm Norm, my fabulous guest has brought a little libation for us to enjoy, and I think he said it's 3 different beers.
It is.
Oh,
it's
look,
a couple
you got
different beers.
in the Waka cooler.
Right, because this always sat field side with me. Actually, one of my franchisees. So we went into franchising for a little bit too. That's a whole nother story. Massive failure. If you want to learn how to blow through $750,000, I got an idea for you. Trying to launch a franchise industry.
Ugh, sounds tough. So what are these beers that you brought?
Well, they're from the Krog.
Oh, the Krog. Are you an investor in the Krog?
I am not. I'm friendly with many of the investors, and I probably should have, because I'm definitely a regular there. So to me, that model is just such a great center of community. It's somewhere you can always go and just know somebody else there, sort of that classic range.
Yeah, sure.
And
that's how you define the model, just a community bar?
Well, for them, it's just wine and beer, right? So it's just taps, no hard liquor, which also simplifies the model a lot. And while I know mixology is the thing here in this room, you can get a nasty element if you're selling a lot of liquor in a bar sometimes.
A nasty element.
So.
Do you personally know any nasty drunks? Yeah,
I'm not going to answer that question.
Well, just answer the question, name names. We only have like a dozen listeners.
I brought a selection. They're all IPAs because I'm an IPA guy. I'm a cliche in that way, my generation. But with varying levels of alcohol.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
So none of them too high because I used to drink really high alcohol content beer, and I don't do that anymore. And also non-alcoholic because, amazingly, Athletic has figured out how to make a nearly non-alcoholic IPA that's pretty good.
I want to try that.
Yeah.
So do you want to pour? Do you want to do a flight? Pour some of these in the glasses, and we'll try the next one.
Absolutely.
All right. So what are you pouring first?
Well, the first one.
And how can I help?
Yeah. So this is Power Tools from Industrial Arts, which is in Newburgh, I'm pretty sure, and they make a bunch of great beer.
Okay.
So this one's Power Tools. I was actually looking for a wrench, which is the name of another one of their beers. You can sense a theme here, but they were out of wrench.
Power Tools.
I got some Power Tools.
Industrial Arts Brewing Company, and you said they're in Newburgh?
Yeah, I think that's right. See, I can't read these beer bottles with my glasses.
So this is 7.1%.
This is the highest.
Sounds like okay. So it's just you and me drinking.
Just you and me drinking. Yeah. All right. So that's good. So you can tell me what you think of this one.
Yeah, I can't wait. I love that. Now we're having a beer tasting, which I love. When I go to a place that has lots of beers, I always like to get a flight and try like 4 or 5 different beers. Well, cheers, Johnny LeHane.
Grassy.
Delightful.
Yeah.
So back in the day when you were going to Kelly's back there in D.C., hatching all these fabulous ideas that led you here, what were you drinking?
Miller Lite by the caseload.
Really?
Yeah, I had no real taste. I went right from college to kickball, and we drank the light beer. And we had and they paid us a lot of money.
To be the official
beer, yeah. So first a league at a time, and then a city at a time, and then we had Budweiser and Miller sort of competing for the national brand to get on the T-shirts and because we could get them taps in bars, which was a really important thing. So we had very good relationships with beer companies. They were a significant part of our business.
Wow! And all through when you're nationwide, still the sponsors, sponsorship dollars is how you made your money.
That was.
I don't know why I didn't think of that. It makes a lot of sense now that you say that.
Yeah, to me, the player fees sort of made the business just run and paid for what was happening on the ground, and the sponsorship made the business valuable and allowed us to have sort of the robust back office and to honestly let the founders, live the lifestyle they came accustomed to.
So are you still on the board or anything?
No, I totally stepped away. Right. I was done, and sometimes you're done.
Right. And so now what's the company you're working with now? What are they called?
Well, which company is one question.
Oh, good. We'll list them all.
Right.
The angel
Hudson Valley
investor.
Startup Fund.
Hudson Valley Startup Fund.
So the Hudson Valley Startup Fund is the angel investment group or the early stage investment group. I also helped co-found the co-working meeting and event space. Which is gorgeous. It is a gorgeous
Beautiful
building.
space.
Frank Mazzarella designed that building.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and he is also a partner. That, sort of like the Krog, we have 17 owners at Co. It was really, and it's built as a for-profit cooperative. So the whole model was really designed not as, hey, we're going to, do a WeWork and get rich. It was designed as we know that you need community and co-working in a place for these startups and these other folks who are thinking about, some new business to be able to be and convene and work side by side. And I had been working from co-working spaces since 2004. So I was following the trends and I always wanted one. And then Ellen Lesterlin, who I had met, who's from Saugerties, was looking to start a co-working space. And she had also been working with somebody here in Rhinebeck. And she had heard that if you wanted to open a co-working space in Rhinebeck, you should talk to me. So that's how we ended up working together.
That's great. And so that did seem like a really nice idea. I mean, I know lots of freelancers who want to get out of the house and want to be in an environment and stuff. Seemed like a great idea right up until March of 2020.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we launched I drove by. I was like, oh, poor place.
Yeah. We launched in October 2018, and we knew it would take a little while to ramp up. And we did. We ramped up. We had an accelerator in the space for a while. We had customers who have their own private desk full-time, our residents, as we call them, and a lot of community members. And then we had just gotten to where we expected to be able to get in March of 2020, best month at, February leading up to it. And then, we had to shut it all down. We were completely shut down and wouldn't let anybody in the space for, I think, 2 months. And then we started working with our permanent members, the folks who had dedicated desks, and everybody was still scared to come back.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Yeah, we were fortunate. Our landlord is also one of those 17 owners in Co.
Okay. So y'all don't own the building.
We don't own the building, right? So there was flexibility there with the landlord, which was critical, or we wouldn't be talking about Co anymore. And it slowly came back as things lifted, and then even more so, of course, because now remote work is what everybody does. When we were first getting out there at Co, putting our pitch deck together, we were talking about trends in co-working and trends in remote work, and how 20% of the people worked remotely at least one day a week. And I think I just heard this morning, at least 50% of the U.S. works one day a week at home.
Right. So the people, I work at home. So the people who go there, are they going there for the facility, for like whatever you had, like the printers, or for having their peers around, or to get away from their kids? Or
I think you hit on it. I say there's two reasons that people co-work: is that they're trying to get away from distraction, or they're trying to find distraction.
Right.
Right. So if you're at home and trying to get stuff done, and the laundry is calling you, and you don't want, and you know that you're going to go and do the laundry because you'd rather be distracted that way than going to the office, gives you a chance to focus, right? All those little tasks aren't going to be there. At the same time, if you're looking to bump elbows and maybe have some ideation and brainstorming, or you're between jobs or trying to foster something, then you're looking for that distraction. You're looking for that interaction. And that's another great reason to come into a space like Co.
Right. And so now post-pandemic lockdown, how's business going?
We're doing well. We're growing back. We had to lower our prices a little bit during pandemic, as you can imagine. But our resident space with those desks is filled up. So we've got folks who are renting those desks full time. We have a couple offices that are rented out. And then we have our regular members. The part that hasn't come back as much as the events. And that's really critical to our business. So whether it's a corporate event like somebody having a board meeting or an all hands meeting, those daytime meetings are really important. And then evening, whether they're private events or celebrations or parties, we have some of those. We need that to come back more. And it's still just not totally back yet. So that's, if you know anyone that's looking for corporate events, if only I had a mic.
We're having and a platform. Well, I'll ask my 8 listeners to tell their 8 friends, and we'll get you fixed. We're going there next week for a Culture Connect meeting.
Great.
Actually, it's probably for a Thompson Trust meeting.
Okay.
And we'll probably just come in for a little bit.
Well, and you touch on another aspect is the community organizations that we invite in. We give a lot of that time away, right? We want this to be a community space. So I know Winnicky meets there a lot. Culture Connect and Interact meet there. Yeah. On the Rhinebeck Science Foundation board, we meet there sometimes and have events there sometimes as well.
Rhinebeck Science Foundation. Now, what is that?
The Rhinebeck Science Foundation is our local education foundation. I think it was founded in, somebody in this room is going to correct me, 2008-ish. And we invest in STEM and project-based learning in the school system, in the Rhinebeck school system and the community. So
why STEM? Why not STEAM?
It's STEM and STEAM, absolutely, right?
Sticking up for the arts here.
That's right, absolutely. We look at, to that specific question, we like to, students and the administration can write grants to us to request funds for programs that they're doing. We like them to be innovative, hands-on, and cross-disciplinary to get to the STEM or STEAM. We like them to involve science and engineering, technology and the arts,
Gotcha.
Right? If you're crossing these gauges and if you're engaging teachers from those multiple subject matters, even better.
And you said students and administration? But teachers also can...
Yes. Teachers and administration are primarily grant writers. So
can students do that?
They could. We need a champion in the school that is... an authority figure of some form, usually, if it's going to be a financial aspect, because the funds go to the school. Well, if a grant is written, we send the funds to the school, and then they...
But still, I'm loving the idea of kids being able to come up with ideas and put in a grant application.
Absolutely.
And the school's the fiscal sponsor or whatever, and funnels the money through to...
Absolutely. We actually have an open rec for students that are interested in joining the board as participants in the Rhinebeck Science Foundation board, which has always been parents to date.
Right.
So we're looking for any, especially high school students that are interested in being involved and looking to maybe foster some new grant ideas for innovative things in the school district.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you want some high school students to be on the board of directors of the Rhinebeck Science Foundation.
That's right.
I love that idea. And what do you do there?
I'm currently the president, short-lived. I took on the interim president. We had the founder, Jen Hammoud, was president, who I think is a friend of the station.
Yeah, she's a great friend of the station and the producer of this show.
Absolutely. So Jen founded and was our president for most of the life of the organization. And then when Jen decided her kids had graduated and it was time for her to move on and let the organization get its legs under it, I stood in as vice president and then up to president. So that means making sure the trains run on time, making sure the interaction with the school district. We're really having a great time getting to know Albert Cousins and I'm going to forget Katie, our new assistant administrator or curriculum director.
Right.
These two are so energized and are really coming out of the pandemic, really energizing the school district and the teachers. They brought a bunch of new teachers in, and we're really excited to support them in some real lofty goals because our community has been very generous. So we have funds that we want to deploy into innovative projects there in the school.
And where do your funds come from? They're angel investors from the RSF?
Our funds come mostly from our community. We do a few really great fundraisers every year. Many of your listeners have probably been to the gala that we've had at Grasmere Barn every year for the past, 15 years, I think. Don't know if we're going to get to keep doing that. They would like to be able to keep providing it to us, but we know that they're undergoing a transformation.
Yeah.
So that's been a big fundraiser for us. We have a few other events throughout the year and sort of typical, campaigning to raise funds.
That's amazing. And the bulk of your funds come from from private donors.
Absolutely.
People.
Individuals in our community are very generous.
And what about, do you get grants from other funders
We have done some grants and some joint projects, both with some state organizations as well as other local organizations like the Thompson Trust, et cetera, where we've done partnerships with that.
Right. Amazing. Well, it's a fabulous thing, RSF. And
Absolutely.
What's their website for anybody who's listening and doesn't know?
RhinebeckScienceFoundation.org.
Okay, good. And
no dashes or spaces.
And now I think we're ready for the second beer. What else did you bring us?
Well, now we go up to Catskill. Catskill Brewery, so another local one.
From Newburgh to Catskill.
That's right.
We're staying west of the river.
That's right. Well, yeah, there's a lot of good beers on the west side. And this one is called Grass Wagon.
Grass Wagon.
And it's like fresh grass. Oh. And it's a little lower ABV. I'm not going to be able to read it again without my reader glasses on.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody can figure out what the alcohol is on that.
I'm closer to the light here, so maybe I get a better chance. 4.9%.
There you go. So that's like a regular light beer, a regular beer, like a Budweiser or whatever is 5.1 or 4.9 or something like that, I think.
Okay.
So
I'll bet Budweiser's even less. All right, Grass Wagon. I'm going to taste. Smells like beer.
Smells like beer. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's good. I like the smell of beer. Doesn't taste especially like grass, but it does have sort of a crisp, fresh taste to it.
So there you go.
Thank you so much. And so now I want to ask about music. So tonight is it's the eve of Porchfest 2022.
Absolutely.
And I guess it was canceled last year and maybe
the year before.
Maybe the year before.
I think it was canceled last year.
And so Porchfest is back, and you were involved in it.
I have been involved as a musician. And I have been involved because my sister has a beautiful porch at her house in Rhinebeck. And so we have two stages at her property. One is her porch and one is in front of her barn. And this year I'm the host because she's not available.
Oh, yeah. But she's lending her house.
She's lending her house. We were over there hanging our signs and making sure we had our electric hookups and all that right before I came over here.
That's great. Well, thanks for making time.
Oh, I appreciate it.
And who's going to be playing there? And what street is she on?
So my sister is on, it's the Livingston Street, I guess, but she's at the corner of Mulberry and Livingston. And you're asking me which acts are going to be on her porch. I'm going to forget their names. I know, except that Kathy just came by, who's an acoustic player, and she's playing tomorrow for our second set. But we have bands go. I think the bands go on around noon, the first set.
Right.
And then it's music until 5 o'clock, and then they've got a main stage they set up over near my house by the fairgrounds. At 6 o'clock, they're going to have the main headliner. And I don't know if it's a secret this year or not. I know in the past it has been.
I don't think it is. I think
So
it's...
see if you can...
Somebody Coriel.
Okay.
Yeah, Morale Coriel.
Yes, that's it.
So I've just been handed from the news department here the details. Tomorrow, rain or shine, Porchfest, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. There's a parade from 5 to 6 p.m. led by Brasskill, sort of a New Orleans second line kind of marching band. The finale, Morale Coriel, 6 to 7 p.m. at Mulberry and Platt. 46 local bands, all genres, 23 porches, and it benefits the Thompson Mazzarella Park Fields for Our Youth. They're going to be raising money towards the construction of a multi-use athletic field at the amazing Thompson Mazzarella Park, which is just such a great asset to this community.
I love it. I walk that full loop a couple times a week in the morning. Absolutely. I love it. I was walking there this morning. I did a full walk of that loop, and I was actually just imagining, like, they're going to put that field there. I just hope it gets used all the time. I think it's going to be great.
Now, multi-use fields, so like soccer,
football, right? I don't
they already
know.
have a baseball field.
They
there.
do. It's a Little League baseball diamond that they have there. Yeah.
And tennis courts, which I love.
You probably use those a lot.
I do. I use them as much as possible.
Yeah.
And there's a wonderful playground. There's a community garden. And then in the front is the library.
Yeah.
The Star Library. And it's all back behind there for people who don't know.
Well, and to me, what I love is you can walk out of the village that feels really urban, right? Small town urban.
Yeah.
And you walk that extra probably quarter mile. And then if you walk that outer loop of that property, you're in the woods practically. You're in nature, and you're far away from anybody else, and except for maybe one or two other people walking their dog.
Yeah, in the woods,
really
there's a stream,
peaceful.
There's the farm right next door.
It's great.
It's just amazing. And that's one of the things I think that people love about living here so much.
Absolutely.
Is there's a movie theater, an art supply store, good restaurants, and then there's all that stuff just down the street, really.
Absolutely. When you were asking were there any second place in terms of when we were looking to move back to the Hudson Valley, when I saw the number of restaurants that I could walk to if I bought a house in the village here, I was like, this is better than when I lived on Capitol Hill in D.C. Like, it's just, you can't believe it. And only more have come in the last 15 years that we've been here. It's really
So you've been here 15.
And 05, so 17 now, yeah.
And how has it changed in the 17 years you've been here?
More people know my name when I first got here.
Well, you're a friendly guy, community oriented. And
we've seen it go up and down, right? I mean, since 05, we had, 08 to 11 were rough years, right? We saw some of the storefronts empty out and fill back up. And now we've just had a whole nother challenge, right? So some folks didn't make it through the pandemic, so we've seen new stores open back up. To me, I think the biggest change sort of is in the vibe that when I first got here, I felt a lot of new folks versus old folks thing. Like, we've been here for 3 generations and you folks moved up after 9/11 or whatever. And I don't get that vibe as much anymore. And I think it's a combination of respectfulness of the newer folks and a realization of the folks who have been here a while that of all the richness that it brings to have all the, this new vibe coming in from time to time.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, maybe a certain amount of sort of like community maturity, understanding the only constant is change. And that's happening here, of course.
Yeah.
Well, but you're a musician also, not just an organizer.
I play drums. I played it when I was in elementary school, middle school, high school. Arlington High School has always had an amazing marching band, and my brothers were in that, so I joined as well. I'm not a great musician. I was relegated to crash cymbals for the first 2 years that I was in marching band. But I did make it to the instrument I really wanted to play, which is quads, which is sort of like carrying around a drum set. You have 4 tom-toms in front of you.
Right.
And at Arlington, they had amazing instructors. They had guys who wrote the music. So they weren't just taking sheet music off the shelves. These were guys who were writing. The drum line was this amazing drummer, Mr. Fennell, that taught. And so you had to play some really sick licks, and that was a lot of fun.
Some really sick licks. So you were in the marching band.
So I was in the marching band.
Give me 5. Me too.
There you go. Oh, all right. Playing.
Loved it. Trumpet.
All right. That's my oldest brother played trumpet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they used to play back then. It was all about like the Spanish jazz and the English marches. That was like our style. So he was, I don't know what kind of stuff you guys played, but man, when they hit those high C's, that was great.
Yeah,
Trumpet solos.
That was me. I wasn't the best player, but I could hit the highest notes.
Yeah.
Worth something, I guess.
Yeah, it's
but
great.
yeah, I loved being in the marching band.
It was like being in a sport. To me, it was my sport because we competed. Like, we competed and got scores, and we got the best scores on the East Coast sometimes. So that was good.
That's amazing. So do you still play drums?
Yes, I still play drums. After marching band in college, I didn't have any drums. I didn't really join any bands.
You played in college?
No, I played in high school. During college, I didn't really play at all.
Gotcha.
And actually, it wasn't until I was 25 that I bought any drums again, and I bought congas. So, the big, tall drums, 2 drums on a stand, and just started playing with them. But that was when I was 25. I didn't actually start playing again until I was about 40. And a friend of mine, Nat Charney, I had met through the Rhinebeck Science Foundation board, and he said, "You play an instrument? Want to join my band?" Which I think he says to everybody. I'm not sure, but I've seen him invite a lot of people to play in Vinny's basement. And I played with them for 5 years, and it was great. And we played out a few times. We played at Porchfest 2 or 3 times together. They'll be playing Porchfest again.
Played with them. What are they called?
Vinny's Basement. Psychedelic rock.
Oh, you played when you said you played in Vinny's basement.
In Vinny's basement.
I didn't guess that was the name of the band.
Yeah.
And where do they rehearse? Please.
In Vinny's basement.
That's lovely.
Yes.
That makes it easy for old fellas like me to remember. And what kind of music does Vinny's basement play?
They would call it psychedelic rock. It's old guy rock, but with a lot of originals thrown in. So you might hear some Beatles, you might hear some Doors, but you'll also hear a lot of very interesting originals.
And which ones had the best drum parts for you?
Well, I got to make them all up, so it didn't really matter.
You did?
Yeah, you find out what fits.
So they're playing like a Phil Collins song. You're like, I'm just going to make up a better drum part.
Well, there's a drum set player, so Dan Shanahan plays the kit. Mm-hmm. So he probably studied and made sure he had exactly the right drum part.
I see. And you were
I was just a fill. Yeah, and the backing vocals, when they needed a deep voice somewhere.
Oh, a deep voice. Wow. So who were your favorite drummers growing up when you were really thinking about drumming?
Neil Peart from Rush I was a total Rush head. Me and my buddies, would buy their albums, and I went to see them Madison Square Garden when I was like 13. And lucky for me, he was like the best. So you really didn't need to go too much further than that.
Right.
So that was the one that I bought. I bought the fake books to try to learn his parts to songs like Spirit of Radio and Tom Sawyer and some of the more arcane ones.
Oh, yeah, Tom Sawyer. Nobody's heard of that.
Yeah, I said, and some of the more arcane ones, but yes.
Wow. And how would you describe this guy's drumming style? What drew you in and said, oh, my God, he's the best?
Super technical, lots of notes, lots of different time signatures, right? And if you go on YouTube today, which I'm, prone to do late night, the studies of things that Neil Peart wrote and that whole band, they're just the most technical band out there. They don't have a lot of soul, and they didn't have a lot of soul. Neil passed away 2 years ago. But technically nobody could match their ability. Right. And they also had geeky lyrics, which I was a really big fan of.
Geeky lyrics. Yeah. Do you know any examples offhand? I want to hear a geeky lyric.
You're going to ask me to quote a geek.
No, forget about it. What about jazz drummers? Are you a jazz fan at all?
I've come to appreciate jazz a lot more, again, after college and, met other guys from other backgrounds and stuff. I didn't pick up the specific, wasn't good at picking up the names of them, but I would be like, oh my gosh, that guy's amazing. And but never really got deep into the different artists.
All right, and I got to ask because I don't know. Ringo.
Yeah.
What are your drummer
I think he's got an
Ringo?
Amazing sense of timing, right? And he basically invented the pop beat, so he gets that.
All right, what's the pop beat?
Well, just a 2/4. Just
Oh.
Yeah, she's probably banging out the coffee.
Yeah, I know. That's funny. As soon as you start drumming. Can I hear it again, the 2/4?
Something like that, right?
Okay.
Just the basic stuff Ringo created, and then he knew how to get just like all of the Beatles did. They just knew how to turn people wild. I don't know what that was. I've still I love the Beatles, But I'm like, are they that good? I don't understand. I'm too young to understand the screaming that went on. Like, that made them blow their minds.
A lot of marketing,
I guess,
promoting, but also, I mean, honest to God, it's probably one of the best songwriting duos ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Huh. All right, I got other questions for you. Porchfest, Hudson Valley Startup Fund, LaGrange. No, maybe that's it. That's the end of the questions. Somebody said you were interviewed. I listened to part of this on Kingston Radio.
Yeah.
For the Good Work
Institute.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, what is that?
Right. So the Good Work Institute is an organization that was founded by Matt Stinchcomb, who was a Rhinebeck resident. I think he moved a little further out into the sticks in the past couple of years. But he came up from Brooklyn and was one of the very early guys in Etsy, which also, grew, exploded, and ended up in Hudson. And he was early on and in marketing. And before they went public, they were very much a social justice, mission-oriented business. And he wanted to make sure that they maintained that. So he was doing stuff to really say, what's our social mission on this? When they went public, they gave an endowment to launch the Good Work Institute, which is an organization that is working on just transition, which is basically, there's a lot of stuff really bad about our form of capitalism that could be fixed. And they're trying to figure out how to fix it. How do we make more justice, more equitable, more distribution of funds to those who are actually creating value? How do we really honor earth and place as part of commerce and business and not make it all extractive but regenerative?
So do you have any thoughts? I mean, how do you redefine profit for investors? That it's not just the dollars at the end of the day, but something else. How much good did you do? How many people, how many jobs do you create?
Right. To me, I think it is about distributing the ownership and the upside to as many people that are involved in the process as possible, as opposed to other strings. So like when we think about investors, we think about the folks who put the money in.
Right.
Right. And those are the folks who get the most equity, the percentage of the pie. Right. Whereas the folks who build the business or who labor in the business on a daily basis get a much smaller piece of the pie and almost never get any say. So that's where I think the change can be best made. And that's why things like for-profit cooperatives are a great model, where your employees and even your vendors and even your customers can be a part in the decision-making and in the upside. So they can gain durable equity, not just a paycheck, and they can have a say in the work that they do and the way that it's done.
Nice. So like employee-owned companies.
Yep.
And who are some of the biggest employee-owned companies right now out there?
Ace Hardware.
Oh, really?
Ace Hardware is a for-profit cooperative.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's Williams.
Williams is part of that. That's right.
So everybody who's working there.
I don't know about everybody. I don't know the exact details on that.
People have been there a while anyway.
And like Williams is a part of the Williams, and the Williams family is part of the cooperative as well. And then folks underneath have that opportunity as well.
And how are they doing? The Ace family.
Right. I think it's a super successful model.
Right.
I haven't dug in more recently into how's everybody doing after the pandemic, so to speak, right?
Right. Well, that's super interesting. So that's the Good Work Institute?
Yeah, the Good Work Institute. So when they first started was around the same time I was launching the Startup Fund. And for me, it was a great balance because the Startup Fund could feel really extractive. Hey, let's get the rich guys, mostly old white guys, to put some money in a pot to launch some businesses so that they can make even more money, right? That sounds pretty extractive, or the opposite of what I was just talking about. But Good Work Institute was launching fellowships, which were 13-week immersives where we spent like a full day a week together learning a lot of different models of folks who had succeeded in a different way to do business in some of these, whether it was a cooperative or other models, to try to create new regenerative businesses. So going through that fellowship was, for me, a good counterweight to launching the Startup Fund and sort of the pure capitalistic.
And what's next for Johnny LeHane?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. I'm always trying to figure it out. I'm spending a lot of my time today coaching, advising, and consulting and steering companies towards the right kind of capital for them, ideally here in the Hudson Valley. And to go back to what I said about the Hudson Valley Startup Fund, and our three objectives, right? We created education, we created community, we invested, but we need to have more impact.
Right.
So I've been looking at models that have that kind of impact, and across New York State, there are state-funded venture competitions that invest in companies that will stay in the huts in their region. So so we've launched a not-for-profit called New York Crossroads, and our goal is to get New York State to put $5 million a year into this organization that will pump it into startups that are in or will locate in the Hudson Valley here, and to provide a bunch of support and education and network around them.
That's amazing. But I mean, you said sort of 5 million is not a lot. I mean, would you eventually like it to be 500 million or?
For me personally, I think if I was on a team managing the deployment of $20 million, that's about as big as I would ever want to get.
And how come? Why is it less interesting or more difficult or whatever?
It would be a level of complexity that
Gotcha.
I'm really not interested in. I mean, you really want to be, I don't really want to be a venture capitalist. I really want to work with folks who have cool ideas and are bringing them to life.
Right.
And the folks who want to support those financially or otherwise.
Right. So the level of complexity is okay in the drumming, but not so much in the business.
Yeah. Well, everything's a spectrum, right? I needed more complexity than just solving the kickball problem.
Right.
But I don't need to run a $100 million fund and all the,
Right.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It does to me too. And that's it. We're out of time. It's been an hour.
Wow.
Johnny
Fantastic.
LeHane, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
It's been such a treat getting to know you better. I mean, I've known you for a long time, or in a friendly "Hi, how are you" basis. And what a treat hearing your story. Thank you so much for coming in.
Totally
and
appreciate the time.
sharing. And can't wait to see Porchfest tomorrow. And I already gave that blurb. And thank you for coming. Everybody have a happy Friday. I have one more announcement. Tomorrow, after you're done with Porchfest, come on down to Rhinecliff for another Big and Salty live performance at the Morton Memorial Library. Big and Salty is a new storytelling show podcast featured here on radiofreerhinecliff.org, featuring Chris Wells, who's fucking amazing. He tells stories before a live audience. He usually has, here we go, live music accompaniment by Tim Geeney and Jake Goralnik. And he's got 3 new stories, which will be read tomorrow, Saturday, September 24th, 7 p.m. at the Morton Memorial Library in Rhinecliff. There's a suggested donation of $10. Cocktails will be served by our own Matty on the Morton porch at 6:30, and there's a $7 suggested donation for that. So come tomorrow to hear this. Tonight you've been listening to Correct Me If I'm Norm with Johnny LeHane. Everybody have a great weekend and happy Friday night.